And the Bucs hope that this will be their first victory ever.
We have a great area, a growing area, in Tampa, St. Petersburg, Clearwater, Sarasota, Bradenton, Lakeland, and Winnehaven, and even Wachoo. Over 2 million fans, and it's the fastest growing area in the United States.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, live from Tampa Stadium. For the first time ever in a regular season, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers enter the stadium with numbers in both the win and loss columns. The Buccaneers came onto the field to a wild standing ovation from the some 60,000-plus fans at Tampa Stadium. They did not introduce any players individually. The PA announcer said, "Ladies and gentlemen, your Tampa Bay Buccaneers."
Welcome to San Diego, California. Super Bowl 37. It is Tampa Bay versus the Oakland Raiders.
Third down, 18, dropping Gannon, looking Gannon, throws up in the head, intercepted at the 40, Derek Brooks 30, Brooks to the 29, 20, Derek Brooks all the way, there it is, the dagger's in, we're going to win the Super Bowl.
Tom Brady signing with the Tampa Bay Bucs tomorrow. Holy hell.
Everyone always says, why the Bucs, man? Why do you choose the Bucs? And it was a no-brainer.
Brady has all kinds of time, throws toward the end zone. It is a caught ball. Touchdown, Tampa Bay, Mike Evans. 8 seconds, 7 seconds. Brady to throw, throws a deep pass downfield. Got Scotty Miller in the open, makes the catch. Touchdown, Tampa Bay. Super Bowl 55 will be underway at Raymond James Stadium. Here's the snap out of the gun. Play action fake pass to Gronkowski. He's going to score a touchdown. Touchdown, Tampa Bay. Holy guacamole. Bucs are the Super Bowl champs. They can't stop the clock. And there the cannons go. Fire them. Keep on firing them. Keep on firing them. Tampa Bay Buccaneers from the 48-yard line. Second down, 13. Brady lobs one downfield. Caught ball by Gronkowski inside the 20 to the 15-10. Gronkowski to the 5 to the 4-yard line. Holy guacamole. Here's the snap. Pressure coming from the outside. Brady throws it back. Caught ball first out of the 50. Outside the numbers 40 to the 30-yard line. To the 25. It's Perriman. Bashaud Perriman. Touchdown Tampa Bay. Bucs win in overtime.
This is the Big Nasty. Yeah, Big Nasty, Hall of Fame Tampa Bay Buccaneer fan, baby.
This is Mike Allstott, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and you're listening to the Cannon Fire Podcast.
Cannon Fire Podcast, brother. You ain't listening, and you're missing out. Woo!
And there the cannons go. Fire them. Keep on firing them. Keep on firing them.
What is up, Bucs fans? Welcome back to a brand new edition of the Cannon Fire Podcast. Live on YouTube today, once again, I'm your host, as always, Rhett Matthew, joined alongside me, my good buddy and co-host, the Philly Bucs fan himself from Mr. Bucs Nation. I'm sorry, from BucsNation.com. I know that I've made that mistake more than one time, and somehow James creeps his way into another episode. Joining me today, Evan Wanish from BucsNation.com. How you doing, pal?
I'm doing quite well. How are you?
I'm good, man.
I don't know what was so funny. I mean, we haven't done a show in a while, so I guess it's a little jitters.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm shaking off the ring rust. I hate to say, I hate that this is the time of year where every time we do a show, it's like, man, it's kind of been a minute since we've done a show. You know what I mean? Yeah. And like, that's never a great feeling. But on top of shaking off the ring rust, if I can be transparent, I'm still coming down from from an anxiety-induced experience I had on the drive home from work. So I got pulled over today. I had texted Evan.
The cop just didn't want us to record that.
Yeah, pretty much. But yeah, I'm driving home from work, and I may or may not have stopped all the way for a stop sign, and 12 saw it, came, pulled me over, gave me a written warning. But, oh, dude, I was like... So I'm on my way home. Me and Evan had planned that we're going to do this. And then this dweeb cop, with all due respect, pulls me over and he goes, he sounded like a Leafs fan. He's like, you didn't stop all the way back there at the stop sign. And that was
okay
that.
There, bud.
Hey, we're here. We're making it happen. We've got Buccaneer news to talk about. You guys have seen the title of the podcast already. We're going to be talking about the big tight end, Rob Gronkowski, who is still leaving Bucs fans in a state of purgatory. because they don't know if he's going to be coming back, and we're going to try our best to tackle that question today. Because 2 months ago, if you would have asked us if Gronk is coming back with Tom Brady retired, it was a very different story. He was talking about wanting to go play with Joe Burrow in Cincinnati. Tom Brady comes back out of retirement. And really the last update that we got from Gronk was that he's still undecided. And we haven't gotten so much of an update one way or the other. He told some Bucs fans in a local barbershop that he's just going to make Tom sweat it out for a couple of months. He'll eventually be back playing with the Bucs if he is back playing football, because that part has been cleared up. But with the time that he's taken, he still could choose retirement. He's out here partying. But I think what revived this conversation this week was a video that surfaced of him and Tom Brady getting some batting practice at the Yankees facility right there next to Raymond James Stadium. Now, let's also keep in mind that this video could have been filmed months ago. It could have been filmed a year ago, because Brady is also notorious for posting older videos, like that workout video with Julian Edelman a couple weeks ago that got the people talking. But if anybody knows anything about provocative content, it's Rob Gronkowski and Tom Brady. And Gronk is back in the news cycle this week for this reason. So let me toss the question to you, Evan. Do you think Gronk is coming back?
Well, real quick, obviously, just like you mentioned, he's made it clear that he is either going to retire or he's going to play for the Bucs. He was asked about that at his Gronk Beach party with the draft. And I mean, he literally told TMZ just flat out, he said, it's either retirement or the Bucs. He said, I'm not going anywhere else. So to not really, I shouldn't really say worry or anything, but to clear any worries that maybe, if he does come back, does he still want to join Joe Burrow or anything? No, this is a situation where the Bucs know that they're the only team, and Rob Gronkowski knows that they're the only team. So there's not a debate there. Now, as far as does he come back? Obviously, like you said, hard to believe it's been already over 2 months since Tom Brady came back. So let's say 2.5 months. 2.5 months ago, you asked us this, and we'd probably say no. Right? I think it was either he was going to go play in Buffalo because that's his hometown. They had interest in him last year, or he's going to go play with Joe Burrow in Cincinnati. He had expressed interest in that. And then obviously once Tom Brady comes back, it all kind of changes. And you're saying, Gronk should be back shortly. Now, that hasn't happened. And I think that's what has some fans worried. Some fans see the Gronk Beach stuff and he's partying and having a good time. Why would you want to come back to the grind of football?
This guy is doing everything but re-signing with Tampa Bay right now. If you follow him on social media, I swear to God, you think he's never going to come back.
I mean, yeah, if you just look at that, he's like, this guy, why would he come back? But I mean, these professional athletes and professional football players, they're a different breed. That they are a different breed, and they love the game so much that when you look at Gronk and you're like, he's partying, having a good time. Like, why does he have to, why is he going to come back? Well, he loves football. And when the dust settles, I do think that Gronkowski will return. I would be surprised if he didn't. There's a little bit of evidence. The Bucs had a chance. The Bucs traded up in the second round of the draft, but not for Trey McBride, who went about 3 picks earlier. They traded up for Luke Gedeke. They could trade up for Trey McBride, and get their top-rated tight end, who they really liked. They thought Rob Gronkowski wasn't going to come back. Another thing, and this is minor, but it's still relevant. Cade Otton wore 87 in college with Washington, and he comes to the Bucs, and the number he's assigned. Now, full disclosure, these numbers are not final. They can change, whatever. Rashad White already said that his might be changing. I remember Ronald Jones. I think Ronald Jones' first number was 22, I think.
Let's clarify. Rashad White is going to have to change, or else he's not going to make the team, because I will not have it if the depth chart shows a running back wearing number 29. All right, let me sidebar this conversation. I'm so sorry. We're going to make sure we come full circle here. Rob Gronkowski, of course. Number 87, still kind of up on the shelf there if he wants it, obviously. But let's talk about this batch of rookie numbers, man. I am one of those people, and I'm sure a lot of other people understand where you're coming from, but I think your number selection affects the aesthetic of your uniform completely. Like, I honestly, it's going to take a little bit of getting used to, but I do think it is kind of cool seeing receivers and DBs now with the ability to wear single digits. Like, that's kind of cool. But I mean, 29 on a running back, like this batch of rookie numbers is the ugliest we have had in quite some time. So I hope a lot of them do change because, God, man, they are hideous.
Yeah. Logan Hall's is fine. Kate Otton's is fine. And Kate Otton, he's wearing 88. So 87, it was technically available because Rob Gronkowski was on the roster. Yeah, they still gave him 88 when JBP's not on the roster, but they gave Logan Hall 90 without hesitation. So it's not like a thing, you know. So I do think Rob Gronkowski comes back. Rachaad White hopefully has a different number. Yeah, because wouldn't be good if he kept 29. I remember, I believe that could be a good trivia question because if anybody gets asked about this, if anybody listens to this right now, Ronald Jones's number, the first number he got was 22. Remember that. The first one he got was 22 and he switched it to 27.
So here is the full slate of rookie numbers before we get back to talking about Gronkowski. I just want everybody to get the full effect. I want you to read
way off course.
Yeah, I know. Listen, it's been a minute. We're going to talk about anything and everything. Logan Hall, number 90. Luke Gedeke, 67. Rachaad White, 29. Kate Otton, 88, which is acceptable. A tight end at 88, I'll take it, you know. Jake Camarda, our new punter, number 5, which I guess isn't terrible. You know, Josh Freeman vibes there. Zion McCollum, 27. Kokeeft, 41. And Andre Anthony, 46. What the hell is going on down there?
Yeah, 46 isn't great.
41 is even worse.
41. If he was like a fullback, 41 it'd be like Eric Lorig, you know.
Right. Yeah.
Zion McCollum wearing 27 is fine. I'd rather Rachaad White and Zion McCollum switch because I'd rather have a DB have 29 than a running back have 29.
I don't know if it happens. I don't know if it has the ability to take place, but I'd like to see Rachaad White end up in a single digit number. That'd be cool to hear.
He alluded to that on James Hill, aka Mr. Bucs Nation.
Yeah, Mr. Bucs Nation landing all the big interviews.
The thorn in my side.
We've already mentioned him once right at the beginning of the show. Some way, somehow, this man leeches his brand on every podcast we do.
He's always here, even if you don't realize it. So
eternally
he actually
for the brand.
Right. Rachaad White had actually alluded. He didn't exactly give out specifics, but he did allude that he would like to maybe get a number in the single digits, which 2 is taken, 3 is taken, 4 is taken, 5 is taken. 8 is taken for now. Bradley Pinion's still on the roster. 9 is taken, but
I don't mind the running back.
6 is okay. 6. I mean, Le'Veon Bell wore 6. It's not bad, but I mean, like 1. Do they have a 1? I don't think they have 1. Jalen Darden wears 1, so 1's not available. So if he wants a single digit, it might have to be 6 or like nothing.
Who's our number 9? Joe Tryon.
Joe Tryon, yeah. So yeah, that's the roundup on the rookie numbers. But anyways, back to Gronkowski. I think you see him partying and everything. I just think he doesn't want to go through the grind right now. I would start to get right now. I'm not concerned. I would start to get the concerned if we are 3 or 4 days away from the start of training camp, which is late July. So you still got about 2 months and he's still not signed. If he's still not signed, I'm going to be like, maybe he's not coming back. Or the other, tall tale sign could be if the Bucs sign a tight end, if the Bucs go out in free agency, and we'll talk about a few free agent options here, but if they go out in free agency and they sign a tight end who, like, you look at and you're like, that could be the guy, like you could see him starting. So that's the only way I'd be concerned. I think the mandatory minicamp is June 6th, I think. I don't think Gronkowski wants to participate in that. If he's on the team and he doesn't participate, he gets fined. But if he's not on a team, He doesn't have to, if you're not on the team, you don't have to do nothing. So I think he will sign shortly after that mini camp. So I think you're looking at mid to late June that he will come back.
Yeah, and Rob Gronkowski, a guy who I believe celebrated a birthday this past week, turned 33 years old. So
33 years young.
Yeah, I mean, this is a guy who, we talk about the wear and tear, the mileage on Rob Gronkowski, one of the most storied tight ends of all time. He's been beat up a lot. So honestly, hearing the stories about him faking the sprints a couple of years ago when he first signed in Tampa so he didn't have to do all that stuff, this is pretty on brand for Rob Gronkowski.
And it doesn't affect his play one bit. So.
Exactly. The fact of the matter is he can continue to keep shoveling down cheeseburgers. When he needs to drop the weight and bulk up, he's going to be able to do it because not only does he have a best friend.
He looked pretty good. He looked pretty good running in that outfield.
Oh yeah, man.
He looked
out there, BP. Oh, speaking of our good friend James Hill, aka Mr. Bucs Nation,
get back to work.
The $2 super chat towards the Wendy's Fund.
Slacking off.
Checking in from work for the boys. He is on the clock, giving us his hard-earned money. You got to be a little more appreciative than that, Evan.
Thank you, James.
His ears were burning. He heard us talking about him.
I know. He must have. James, if you're just joining, we've already mentioned you twice. So
the first time wasn't voluntary. The second time, Evan just couldn't stop thinking about you.
Yeah, I couldn't get James Hill off my mind. That beautiful mug. Anyways, there's another free agent who is currently unsigned and sort of obviously the Bucs have a lot of free agents who are signed, but this one's sort of I would say the next biggest impact player. And I would say it actually plays a position of a bigger need than tight end, honestly, but that's Ndamukong Suh. And there's been a lot of talk that Ndamukong Suh could lean towards retirement. He could lean towards coming back to the Bucs, but unlike Rob Gronkowski, there's been some talk that some teams maybe do have interest in Ndamukong Suh. I had heard the Raiders, I heard the Browns thrown out there.
Now, with the Browns resigning Jadeveon Clowney to a one-year deal, I don't know if that sways their interest in a guy like Ndamukong Suh, but does that affect maybe the amount of money they're willing to give him?
It could, and I think my biggest gripe with Suh every year is that I like him, but they give him too much money.
And listen, I'm not necessarily in the anti-Suh camp, but a great point that I had heard recently as well is that the numbers don't lie. He has been playing less snaps every year since joining Tampa Bay. And I mean, he's 35 years old. Yeah, he's been productive. He is a big part of what makes that run defense so solid. But when you talk about overpaying a 35-year-old defensive tackle and you just drafted a guy like Logan Hall, that kind of puts a lid on what that kid's going to be able to do this year as well. And with these draft classes being what they are these last few years, you want to draft guys who have the opportunity to produce. Like Joe Tryon, as time goes by, we hear less and less about JPP. I think that ship has sailed. I think Joe Tryon's going to get his first shot at being a legitimate starter in the NFL this year, playing at the end of that defensive line. I don't know if Logan Hall's going to be a starter, because I think if Suh doesn't come back, the Bucs are still going to take a look at some veteran talent to fill the gap right there. But if Suh isn't here, I ultimately feel like that just, opens up the amount of work he's able to do every Sunday.
Well, yeah, because I mean, there's a number of snaps available then. Will Golson's not getting any younger. So, I mean, you could see more snaps for another guy like Ricky Nunez-Roches or something, or if they add a free agent, who knows? But I don't know. I'm confident Gronk's coming back. I am really 50-50 on Suh, though. I think it could go either way. I don't think he's going to retire. I think this will be his last year in the NFL, regardless of where he plays. So I think it'll be either the Bucs or it'll be like another contender. I could see the Raiders, but I don't know, are they a true contender? A lot of people bring up that, he might retire. He's got twins now. He's married. He's working on a lot of things. That is true. But I think, like I said, man, football players, they got it in their blood. You saw it with Tom Brady. he couldn't stay away. Like it's tough to walk away, especially when you're still producing. Like Ndamukong Suh, while he's not the dominant player that he was in 2017 or whatever, still a good player. Like that doesn't mean he's bad. And I think when you're producing like that, it makes it even tougher to walk away from that. So we'll see. I don't think he retires, but I'm also not 100% sold. He's still in Tampa. And in the case that he's not, like you mentioned, James Pierre-Paul, I think there's like a 5% chance that he comes back. It just doesn't seem like that's going to be happening. A great leader. And was a great player. Unfortunately, though, I think Jason Pierre-Paul is cooked. Like, I think his shoulder is not going to allow him to be as productive. And I think if he were to come back, I think the Bucs would say, sure, but Joe Tryon-Shoyinka is going to be the starter, and you're going to be the one coming in a rotation. And I just don't know if he would go for that. So, and plus, I mean, they still do have limited money. They have limited resources. So you got to spend wisely, because you only have, it's not like you have this, it's not like you have $20 million left. Oh, you can throw it everywhere. No, you have very limited. You can only maybe 2 more signings, maybe. I mean,
and that's like starters. That's, guys who are going to come in, fill a gap exactly where they need to be and take up a majority of your
Rob Gronkowski and Ndamukong Suh. You sign both of those, you can't bring Jason
That's
Pierre-Paul
pretty
back.
much your team.
Yeah.
I mean, you can fill it out with lower depth, cheaper talent throughout the rest of camp and things like that. But these next few signings, especially at these key positions, it's pretty much going to seal the deal on what is ultimately going to be the 2022 Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Yes, and there is a ton of free agents available. I'm not sure I've seen a year where there's been so many quality free agents still available at this point. That you saw a little bit of a flurry after the draft, specifically when the comp pick thing sort of went away, because I think the deadline is right around, it gets May 1st, where anybody you sign after that doesn't affect your comp pick formula. So like you saw Tyrann Mathieu sign with the Saints, you just saw Kyle Fuller sign with the Ravens. Like you've been seeing some of these. You saw Melvin Ingram sign with the Dolphins. You've been seeing some of this. So with that, I think it's a good way to break into this segment. And that is, let's say Rob Gronkowski signs, right? And you have another piece to go. You have some needs. The team isn't I don't think it's a finished product. I can't look at it and say, oh, no, you don't need nothing. Like, do you really, as a contending team, do you want to rely on Logan Hall to play 70% of the snaps every game? Like, do you want to rely on that? I don't know if you do. Joe Tryon-Shoyinka, while he flashed, what if he struggles? He's still a young player. Like, what if he can't catch on right away? The secondary, we all saw how the secondary went down last year. Sure, they pieced it together. What if that would happen again? Like, what happens? So I think you could look at free agents more on the defensive side of the ball. The offense, besides Gronkowski, kind of feels complete. Talk a little bit about, like wide receiver, maybe, because I kept telling you, they saw.
I'm not going to lie to you, pal. I'm so tired of talking about wide receivers.
Real quick.
I feel like this is the position on the team that's just spread the most thin week in and week out. I mean, we're still talking about Julio Jones. I don't know why we're still talking about Julio Jones, but we are indeed still talking about Julio Jones. And I'm sure we're going to cover the wide receiver spot here in a second.
And talk about Julio Jones.
Oh, all right. Well, the stage is yours, friend.
So I kept saying to everybody that like the Bucs didn't want to and this was obvious, right? Like the Bucs didn't want what happened last year. You can't have your divisional round game have Rashad Perriman be your number 2 wide receiver. Can't happen. And while it's unlikely that a wide receiver is going to quit midseason and your other wide receiver is going to have a significant injury, similar things could happen to where you are limited. Right? Mike Evans I wouldn't say he's completely healthy. He misses games here and there. Chris Godwin's coming off a major injury. Sure, Russell Gage has played in most games, but also he's had reduced roles at times. He's got to have a bigger role now. what happens if Chris Godwin's recovery is longer than expected, and instead of coming back week 3 or week 4, he has to come back week 7 or week 8. And what happens if Mike Evans misses a game? Are you going to go up against the Ravens without, with Russell Gage as your wide receiver 1? Or are you going to go up against the Steelers defense with Russell Gage as your wide receiver 1?
Now, Steelers defense
how's that going to work out?
Steelers defense is week 6, and while we're talking about the wide receiver room, we would be remiss if we did not mention Chris Godwin, because he has also been a part of the conversation. Now, there's a lot of people who say he may or may not be back week 1. You honestly believe week 3 or 4 is most realistic for him, but outside of that first quarter of the season, I think Chris Godwin as your wide receiver 1 isn't necessarily a bad deal.
No, it's not. But that also means that I think Russell Gage, if Mike Evans were to miss time, Russell Gage would have to be our wide receiver 2. I'm just saying you can't have Brashad Perryman or Tyler Johnson or Scotty Miller. Everybody who listens to this podcast knows.
He doesn't even want those bums on the field.
I don't. I'm sorry. Okay. Everybody that listens to this podcast knows how I feel about Tyler Johnson, right? I'm a huge Tyler Johnson
That's your
fan.
boy. Come on, you're okay. So you're still on the wagon.
Him and Sneak.
Okay, but okay. Well, if you've really been listening to the show long enough, you know the difference between your thoughts on Tyler Johnson and Keyshawn Vaughn. But seriously, are you still on the wagon for Tyler Johnson, or has that ship sailed for you after 2 seasons?
I'm on it, but I'm teetering off. So he's got to prove it. He's got to prove it this year. I don't know the type of role he's going to have, but got to prove it. And I'm just saying, I just think that wide receiver is a place where they could add. And I'm just saying, real quick, I want to ask you, why are you sick of hearing about the wide receivers and Julio Jones who's been talked about too much, or is it because you wouldn't do it?
I think Julio Jones in particular, I know when you talk about bringing in a guy who is the age of Julio Jones, there is no long-term benefit, right? Like it's just what's going to get you through this year, what's going to help you compete for a championship. But outside of possibly taking up some targets that first quarter of the season, I don't see the advantage of having a Julio Jones as your, now that I say it out loud,
number 4 wide
having
receiver.
Julio Jones as your number 3, number 4 wide receiver 5-6 years ago would have been incredible. But I just don't like. I feel like some of the guys on this is going to be a hot ass take. I feel like some of the guys on this roster have more upside than Julio Jones in his condition. Julio is washed. You want to talk about JPP being washed? Julio Jones is washed, my friend.
He can still run a little bit. Don't get me wrong. He can still run and catch, and that's really all you got to do in this type of offense. I was going to say, that's his job description.
Yeah, that is his job, but damn, dude, I don't want a washed player because of, because it's Julio Jones. Like, it would be kind of an oddity to see Julio Jones in the red and pewter, especially with Tom Brady of all people throwing him passes. And I know
and Falcons fans would just be in tears.
I know that's probably the best part of it, but I also think, the appeal of it makes sense because Tom Brady has publicly confirmed that he may or may not have been texting Julio Jones. So it's like, people are excited to see it happen. It's a big name for this Bucs offense, and it's been nothing but big names for this Bucs offense over the last 2 seasons. I just do not want Julio Jones on this roster. I just don't think there's a benefit there.
Okay.
Sign another receiver. I don't know how many good receivers are left, but I feel like there's got to be
there's a few.
Option.
Look,
a better option than Julio.
Will Fuller's out there, but he's been injury prone. He's gotten injured like every single season. Julio obviously still out there. I forget. There's a few other guys. But I agree with the points. However, here's the conditions that Julio Jones would come to Tampa under. One, he'd have to take very little money, as we talked about already, right? Like the Bucs don't have this money to just throw around. So if he wants $6-7 million, not gonna happen. Like he'll need to accept less. And 2, he'd also need to accept that his role at the most would probably be a wide receiver 3 at the most. And if he's a wide receiver 3, then what you're paying Russell Gage $10 million to be a wide receiver 4. Like, you're paying him $10 million a year. So that's the two things. So I think Julio would have to take way less money. He'd have to take like $2 million, and he'd have to accept that he's likely going to be the wide receiver 4. Now, where I don't have an issue is with the wash thing. If you're the wide receiver 4, you're not going to be playing a whole lot. Like, you're going to be playing in spurts. Julio Jones had over 700 yards last year. He can play in spurts. He can play in the red zone. You don't want a lot of what if you don't want a lot of wear and tear on Chris Godwin in the regular season heading into the playoffs after that major injury? What if you don't want a lot of wear and tear? You could play Julio Jones in those spurts and a little bit. He can run block a little bit. I personally, I don't think they need to, but I wouldn't be opposed to it. I think he'd be good. Like I said, if you're playing him 80% of the snaps, no. But if you're playing him 30% of the snaps a game, I think he can be just fine. And I do think he could be better in right now, which is what they should be focusing on, because it's this year that he would be better to me than Scotty Miller or Brashad Perryman or Tyler Johnson.
I would accept Julio Jones to Tampa on one condition. This is on Byron Leftwich. He has to throw a touchdown pass. He has to do it because he did it on the Bucs all the time. It felt like twice a year Julio Jones was playing a better quarterback game than whoever we had under center against Tampa Bay. So, yeah.
So here's the list of free agent wide receivers that are still available. And after this, I'm going to get into the defensive guys, and then we'll get on to some other stuff. So Julio Jones is top of the list. Will Fuller, like I said, he's 28, but there's a reason he's still available. Like he's so injury prone. He's a real deep threat guy. He's kind of just a deep threat guy. He can't really do much else. But T.Y. Hilton seems like he might be a little washed. And well, the issue is he's a smaller receiver too, so that doesn't help his case. Yeah. Like Julio still has the size. Like the size ain't going anywhere. But T.Y. is a smaller receiver, and like he's only getting slower.
With Matt Ryan up in Indy, and now Big Richard joining the depth chart, I would be very shocked to see them move on from T.Y. Hilton. I still think that guy can get it done.
I could see them add T.Y. and Julio, to be honest with you.
That would be one of the dopest wide receiver rooms of all time. Like, I mean, truthfully, if you would have told people 5 years ago that the Bucs could potentially have Julio Jones, T.Y. Hilton, nobody knows who Mike Evans is just yet, but Mike Evans, Chris Godwin.
No, I was talking about Indy.
And then never mind then. Forget I said anything.
I think
we're talking about the Bucs adding wide receivers. That's what I'm still thinking about.
Could add T.Y. Hilton and Julio. It'd still be a dope wide receiver room. But imagine saying that the Bucs would sign Julio Jones because they need to replace Antonio Brown.
Yeah, exactly.
imagine saying that. And then they need to replace Antonio Brown. And Tom Brady needs to have somebody to throw the ball to. He can't just throw it to Rob Gronkowski and hand it off to Leonard Fournette.
Exactly.
I mean, come on. And then Cole Beasley. Again, it's a slot guy. Like, there's not much need for a slot guy in this offense, not when you have Chris Godwin. Emmanuel Sanders is an interesting one. The Bucs had interest in him a few years ago. I had heard, after Tom Brady had signed that they had interest, but just didn't work out. He's 35. I'm not sure how much it is on that.
TB12 Goatman says OBJ's out there.
He is.
He won't be available until like week 10.
Yeah. And like Thanksgiving, I think. Yeah. So like, I think he's going to go back to LA, and I think LA will just be like, okay, like he won't be available for the first half of the season, but whatever. But I mean, if he's not signed, in the season, and we get to week 7 or so, and let's say Mike Evans has an injury or Russell Gage has an injury, and you think he's 3 to 4 weeks away, like, sure, why not? But I think he'll be signed before then. Alan Hearns is out there. No. Albert Wilson's out there. No. Deshaun Jackson, I think he's going to retire. Danny Amendola actually wasn't as awful for Houston last year as I thought he was, but like he's 36.
I honestly forget that he's still in the league.
Yeah. But they don't really have a need like for that slot guy. It's the same thing. Adam Humphries is still out there. They don't have a need for that slot
come
guy.
on, bring home.
And other than that, I mean, Mohamed Sanu, Wash, D.D. Westbrook, that's it. Like there's nobody else out there. So, it's kind of, if they're going to add a receiver, it feels like it's probably Julio or nothing. So, Real quick though, let's get on to the free agents who I really want to talk about, who I think the Bucs could like legit potentially sign. Because we talk about Julio, we talk about a receiver. I think a receiver or Julio Jones is unlikely. Okay, let's just put it that way. It's possible. I wouldn't be shocked, but I think it's unlikely. So on the defensive line, a few names that stick out to me are Akeem Hicks from Chicago. Good player. Yet again, though, can't really stay on the field. That's been his issue. But as a rotational guy, have him and Logan Hall rotating in and out, I think that could work. Linval Joseph is still there, more of a nose tackle type, so I'm not really sure how he'd fit next to Villavea, but he's not bad. Here's an interesting one. This might be one of the more interesting ones because there's a connection on the Bucs here. It's Sheldon Richardson. Was with Minnesota last year, was with the Jets though, and was with the Todd Bowles Jets. So there's the connection. Obviously, a guy who would be somewhat familiar with Todd Bowles' scheme and what he likes his defensive linemen to do. I wouldn't be shocked if, and all this would, if they signed Akeem Hicks or Sheldon Richardson, this would mean that Ndamukong Suh hasn't come back and wouldn't come back. If they sign one of these guys right now, that would signal the end.
Yeah, that's ultimately the impression I wanted to make sure people get as well, that if the Bucs are looking to make any of these moves and you hear about a signing of Akeem Hicks or a signing of a Richardson before the Suh signing, forget it. That's pretty much where they're at with that.
Right. And some other names here who are listed as defensive linemen, but are looked at more as, I would say, outside linebackers. Carlos Dunlap from Seattle could be an interesting player for them. And then I know you'll really like this one. And we brought up earlier in the show, not earlier in this show, but in the offseason, Carl Nassib. Obviously, I think they would lean towards more of just a pass rush specialist guy, and I think Carl Nassib is a little too similar to Anthony Nelson, so it'd be kind of redundant to have.
I would like to think that Nassib brought a little more to the table in terms of pass rush because
yeah, for sure.
I mean, he was a lot more what's the word? Agile, I guess, is the way he looked while going after the quarterback. Like, he's one of those high motor guys, and I was a big fan of him while he was in Tampa Bay. I didn't get to see him a whole lot when he was playing with the Raiders, but I know he did have some couple of game-winning moments, so he definitely had some highlights over there with Vegas. But that's a guy who I think, as far as like looking at the free agent list, a lot of teams may undervalue. Like, I'll always be a big fan of Carl Nassib.
Yeah, and I mean, he's a good player. Like I said, I'm not sure. Like, I think they would want somebody with a bit more pass rush. That's why they drafted Logan Hall. Right, there was other defensive linemen there they could have picked, but they decided to roll with the guy who wasn't necessarily. I mean, he's decent against the run, but his pass rush potential is more than some other guys. And one more name that I wanted to talk about has somewhat of a Bucs connection. It's Trey Flowers. I believe he was released this year by the Lions. Obviously played with Tom Brady in New England all those years. That's an interesting one. I believe he's still only like 29 years old. So that could be an interesting one. I would say the two that I would personally keep an eye on would be Sheldon Richardson and Trey Flowers. Those are the two that if they're going to make an addition there, that's the one I would keep my eye on. Those two names. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm not saying that at all. But if they were to make an addition there, I think you could look at those two names, and I think they would both be serviceable. Mikey with the $5 super chat.
Let's go. Clap it up for the boy.
Yeah, that's right. We didn't even clap it up for James either.
I know. Let's double it up.
All right. Extended clap. Extended. Okay.
Thank you, guys.
Appreciate it. So he says, is Tyrell Williams healthy? He was good before he got hurt. I don't think he's healthy quite yet. He was a pretty good player, but I don't think he's healthy just quite yet. So I'm honestly not 100% sure, but I don't believe he's healthy and like ready to go right now. So yeah, I mean, we'll have to wait and see what happens. I don't think they're done adding to the roster. Whether that be that, could be Rob Gronkowski and Ndamukong Suh, but I don't think they're done adding to the roster, and not necessarily it's going to be. I'm not saying it's going to be new faces, but I don't think they're done adding to that roster. So I do think sometime in June or July you'll see 1 or 2, maybe 3 signings of guys that you recognize.
And if there's one thing that we've learned about this Bucs team so far is that, unfortunately, football is a business, and you're not going to be able to bring everybody back, and that's what it is. It could be kind of anticlimactic these next few weeks. You hear about Gronk coming back and Ndamukong Suh coming back, and that's your team, but also just a couple of possible new faces we wanted to throw out there because this team is not afraid to put some new faces, and with Russell Gage locking up a 3-year deal, that's a new face in that wide receiver room, and they were still able to bring Chris Godwin back, of course. Lenny coming back.
They're going to have another former Falcon in the wide receiver room.
Well, we talked about some positions of need for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, but as we start to wrap up the show, before we get to the take bag, I did want to offer a pretty cool perspective. This comes from Mark Ross, NFL.com analyst. He put out a list of the most complete teams heading into the 2022 NFL season. You know who is ranked number 1 on that list? Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Wrong Florida team.
So for 40 days this offseason, the Bucs would not have made this list, but Tom Brady's decision to unretire changed things significantly. He was second in the MVP voting in 2021, and he shows no signs of slowing down, even though he'll turn 45 years old in August. The 7-time Super Bowl champion's presence in the building is paramount to this team's success. Brady has raised the level of play since the minute he arrived in Tampa 2 seasons ago. The offensive line underwent changes. They lost Alex Kappa in free agency and Ali Marpet to retirement. But after trading for New England Shaq Mason, this unit should be more than capable of keeping its quarterback upright. The run game is solid with Leonard Fournette, and the wide receiving core will be in the conversation for tops in the league when Chris Godwin returns to full health. It also feels like a matter of time before free agent Rob Gronkowski re-signs with the team. It'll be a bonus if he does return, as the Bucs have viable players at the tight end position in Cameron Brate and now rookie Cade Otton. The defense is full of playmakers at every level, and there's room to improve if GM Jason Light decides to re-sign Ndamukong Suh or Jason Pierre-Paul. The front line is in good hands with rookie Logan Hall joining veteran edge rusher Shaq Barrett and defensive lineman William Golston and Vita Vea, the best nose tackle in the NFL. Devin White is the best linebacker in the league. Wow. And Levante David is still steady heading into his 11th season. The secondary shouldn't be overlooked, as there are young, versatile game changers throughout the defensive backfield. So the way that Mark Ross sees it, Devin White is the best linebacker in the league, and he is single-handedly carrying this Bucs defense to relevancy.
Okay.
Maybe not that dramatic, but that take I was kind of taken back by. Not only is it weird to see the Bucs ranked number 1 on the most complete teams in the NFL, but
that's fine. I don't have an issue with that.
It was just the Devin White take that I think everybody was kind of like, whoa, because no disrespect to Devin White, but I mean, best linebacker in the league.
In the league, I don't even think he's the best linebacker on his team, let alone in the league. I'm gonna have to go back. I was just looking back. I'm gonna have to go back and screen record my reaction when you said that, because my reaction was pretty good. Okay, yeah. I mean, it's nice to see them getting obviously the respect. It's an NFL.com list. It is what it is.
Listen, I just wanted to float that out there because I know that a lot of people, for some reason, people are pressed about certain positions on this team. Like our good buddy James, we'll mention him for the 4th time today. He put out a video the other day.
He's going to have to start paying us more.
I know, he's taking up ad space now. He put out a video the other day talking about the left guard position, and you look at the competition there, which we'll get a really good look at in camp. It's going to be Luke Gedeke, Robert Hainsey possibly as well, and Aaron Stinney, who started in the Super Bowl, played great throughout the playoff run in 2020. So that position is in pretty good hands. Whoever wins that job definitely deserves it. And then we talked about how well Shaq Mason has been throughout his entire career at the right guard spot. So your offensive line is looking fine. Still have some holes. There is room to get better, but I think it's just a refreshing perspective to remind people that the Bucs are a much better team than a lot of people seem to think they are for some reason.
Yeah, I think in this case, I think Ross is kind of assuming that Gronkowski will be back as well as Ndamukong Suh. It sounds like that's what he probably thinks. But yeah, I mean, I think people maybe gets kind of sick of him. I guess I
Sick
don't
of
know.
who?
Like,
Gronk?
no, so like sick of the Bucs, I guess. Like,
Yeah,
everybody says like,
sure.
oh, they were
Fatigue.
sick of Brady's Patriots and stuff like that. Like, people are sick of the Lightning now. Like it happens. Like that's what people were sick of the Warriors. People were sick of the Heat and LeBron and everything. That's what happened. Like people hate the Yankees. That's what happens when you have success. And I mean those teams, all those teams I listed, had much more long-term success than the Bucs have even had. But I think that when you have that as much success as the Bucs have had, you kind of get a target on your back there, and I think that can lead to a lot of people, I guess, hating. So.
Yeah. Well, it's nice to see them get a little bit of respect because, I mean, when you look at Pro Football Talk just slinging dirt every chance he can get, it's all right. That's a conversation for another day. But let's wrap it up with the take bag. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to toss the floor over to Evan Wanish of BucsNation.com with this week's take bag. What do you got, my friend?
Back.
There is the bag.
There it is. There's nothing in there still.
There's never anything in there.
I know. Well, one day there will be, I promise. Anywho, okay, so we haven't done one of these in a while. So real quick, I don't have much, but I do have a few things. One, everybody is on the New Orleans Saints bandwagon all of a sudden because they signed Tyrann Mathieu and everything. Like, I get it. Like, he's a good player. Like, I'm not saying he's bad. But everybody's like, oh, the Saints, could the Saints win a division? And Dan Orlovsky on NFL Live is like, oh, that's the week 13 game in Tampa that could be decided for the division because this team's this and this team's that. Everybody's talking about, oh, the Bucs have this daunting schedule. Are we forgetting that the Saints have to play basically the same exact schedule? Like, are we ignoring that? Or the Saints, the only difference is the Saints have to play the Vikings instead of the Packers, which, yes, that is a difference. But I mean, the Vikings aren't a bad team.
Kirk Cousins can run it up on you.
Yeah, like the Vikings aren't a bad team, and they have to play the Raiders instead of the Chiefs, which, yet again, the Raiders are not a bad team. Like, it's not like the Raiders and Vikings suck. Other than that, it's the same schedule. So why are we going and they have to play the Eagles when the Bucs have to play the Cowboys? I think the Eagles are better than the Cowboys. So, like, I don't know why we're all saying, oh, to be scared in New Orleans. Sure, they could make the playoffs, but like, I'm still not concerned about the Bucs' chances to win the division because the New Orleans Saints have to play the same exact difficult schedule that the Bucs do.
You mentioned all those fancy new signings, but I think the fact of the matter is we have to respect that the New Orleans Saints, granted, he was like their second or third choice because if Drew Brees decided to come back, they would probably have him start over this guy, but aside from that, they have the best quarterback in the division in Jameis Winston.
That's what I'm told.
Clearly under Dennis Allen, he's going to get this thing figured out. And with a 17-game schedule under his belt, I have no doubt that we will be talking about Jameis Winston in the MVP conversation at the end of the year as the Saints are on their way towards another Super Bowl, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's the impression that I've gotten this week.
With that, folks, we turn our calendars to April 2nd because it was no longer April Fool's Day. Yeah, but it's just like, that's all I'm saying. Like, the Saints could make the playoffs, sure, but like, you can't bring up all the Bucs of this daunting schedule. The Saints have a very difficult schedule as well. They play the Ravens like the Bucs do. They play the Rams like the Bucs do. They played the Cardinals. They play the 49ers. Like, they play the Bucs. Like, I know that they've owned the Bucs, but like, they still play the Bucs twice. Like, it's not as easy, I think, as people think. Well, could the division race be close at the beginning? Sure, I think it could be close, but
especially with
I don't.
2 game.
Yeah, and whoever wins that is going to have definitely. I mean, New Orleans starts off at Atlanta and then versus Tampa. They beat Atlanta and then hopefully not, but they beat Tampa. All of a sudden, not only are you 2-0 on the season, you're 2-0 in the division. So that's huge. And I mean, that would make every other divisional game that Tampa plays that much more important because you lose New Orleans again, you basically need to beat Carolina and Atlanta twice each time if you lose to New Orleans again. hopefully that doesn't happen this year. But I'm just saying the Saints have to play still a difficult schedule. And to end the take bag, right? I said it was going to be a quick one, not much here. Once we get close to the season, there'll be more, I promise. How about the Tampa Bay Lightning, huh?
How about them Bolts, baby?
Quick shout out.
How about Steven Stamkos and the Lightning, bud?
I know. I thought you were going to say, how about Stevie Yzerman? But, I mean, he deserves credit, too. He built that team. I mean, Breezebaugh or whatever his name is, he did some good things. But, I mean, that core was built by Yzerman. So,
and what's crazy is that, like, this core has been together for a long time. But, I mean, even when you look back to 2019 before they went on this tear, it's almost like it's a newer version of that team. Like, same core.
They were always good. Yeah.
Yeah. But, I mean, the way that they have consistently, it honestly felt like throughout the mid-2010s, like I'd say, 2014, 2015 was really
2015,
when
they went to the Cup final and lost to Chicago.
Right. And then once you get in the habit of going on these deep playoff runs every single year, and John Cooper, everybody talked about the window closing, and it's wild because it took 5 years for that window to just bust wide open, and here we are two cups later. I can't crown them the winners just yet. Everybody else on the internet is seemingly doing so. But when you sweep an opponent like the Florida Panthers, the President Trophy, yes,
Yep.
the curse lives on.
They led the NHL in goals in the regular season,
and they scored three in the entire series?
They scored 3 in 4 games.
Yeah, you talk about the Lightning, you got to talk about Andrei Vasilevsky, man.
When he can just turn it on, I mean, he's the X factor, right? I mean, if anything happens to him, you can kiss anything goodbye. But as long as he's in there, you'll have a chance. So yeah, I mean, and I tweeted out, I said I'd never seen anything like the Tampa Bay Lightning. It has like over 400 likes, and I'm like, I'm not even a Lightning fan. Like, why can't my Flyers takes, like, why can't they get this amount of tweets? Like, I mean, likes, like, why?
I'll tell you this, man, it definitely is a wild thing. And if you are a Tampa sports fan, even if you're not 100% a hockey fan,
spoiled.
Yeah. Not only are you spoiled to be a Tampa Bay sports fan right now, but just take it in, man. I mean, this is one of the greatest runs in hockey in a good while. Yeah. I know the Pens did 3 in a row a little while ago.
Pens only did 2. So okay. if the Lightning Penguins won 2016, 2017, the Pens won. So if the Lightning 3-peat, I mean, you could be talking about an all-time great, NHL dynasty.
I mean,
while Chicago won 3 cups and everything like that, like no team in a long time, I think, has won back-to-back. So that would be that would put you not even in the NHL, but in sports.
Yeah.
Like that just doesn't happen.
Yeah. Just the scale of what the Tampa Bay Lightning are doing now for the world of sports and in the city of Tampa. Like, this is, I don't know if the Bucs are going to go on a tear and win 2 Super Bowls in a row, potentially a third one. So if the Lightning can get it done, folks, this is one of the greatest sports teams this city will ever see. God bless Steven Stamkos. And let's go Bolts, baby, huh?
There you go. And I'm eager to see. I'm praying for a Colorado-Tampa final. It feels like we've been due for that for a long time. We've been robbed of that because Colorado continues to choke. But hopefully this year, Colorado does not choke. They get the job done. Tampa Bay gets the job done. And we can finally see just these 2 powerhouses who I think are the 2 best teams in the NHL. I think it's the Avalanche and the Lightning. So eager to see, and hopefully we do get to see that because it's just, I mean, be able to sweep Florida in that fashion was very impressive. And sorry for the hockey talk. If you guys aren't fans of hockey, if you're not, I don't know why you aren't, because playoff hockey is fantastic.
It's the end of the podcast. It's for the brand. #Champa Bay, right? I mean, you got to keep the brand rolling, and hopefully they can bring Stanley Cup home yet again to keep it here in Tampa Bay. But ladies and gentlemen, that's just about going to do it for this week's episode of the Cannon Fire podcast. Really quick, let's check in on the live chat one more time. Our buddy Baker has a lot to say. He said the Bolts have a solid chance at another Stanley Cup, but we are here in Florida and are not counting our chickens before they are hatched, but we do like our chances. Go Bolts. Remember, we're the same city that had no winners for so long, so it is definitely overdue. Very much agreed.
Yeah, but the thing is, like, the Lightning, though, have been a consistent winner. Like 2015, like we mentioned, they were in the Cup final. Like, They were in the Cup final, and then when's the last time they missed the playoffs?
They've had their fair share of mediocre seasons, and they did miss the playoffs after 2015. I know that for a fact.
Did they? Okay,
I
want to
say it was either 16 or 17.
It had to be once. And then obviously, the sweep that the Blue Jackets had, that was painful, right? To be President's Trophy and you get swept in the first round, like that's bad. That's obviously the Panthers is one thing.
Imagine President's Trophy getting swept in the second.
The difference between, well, for one, the first is the worse than the second.
Oh yeah,
and two,
way worse.
Columbus isn't Tampa. Florida ran into Tampa. Tampa was the defending back-to-back champs. Columbus was nothing, and Tampa got swept by them. So that's why that was so bad. But the Lightning have had long-term success. The Rays have had somewhat long-term success. They were in the World Series a few years ago, and now the Bucs have. Not long-term yet. Hopefully it turns into long-term. I think anything over 3 years is long-term. So,
especially in the NFL, the way teams change every single year.
Right. Hockey, there's a lot less turnover and stuff. Hockey and baseball, you have your core and you sort of stick with it. But I'm looking forward to the rest of the playoffs. And we had to get some hockey talk in here. So
it is historic. Ladies and gentlemen, nothing like playoff hockey. That's going to do it for the podcast. Thank you so much for checking us out. Follow the show on social media, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. All of those are Cannon Fire Podcast. Best place to go for updates on the show. And, of course, Buccaneer news as it happens. Speaking of Bucs news as it happens, you can follow my co-host Evan on Instagram at Bucs_daily, the #1 Buccaneers fan page on Instagram. You can also check out his written work at BucsNation.com and check him out on Twitter at EvanNFL. You have anything cooking over for Bucs Nation?
Not a ton, a little bit. I might have something on maybe some breakout players for the Bucs this year. Some guys who could maybe step up and just come out of nowhere and be really good players. Maybe guys that are taking that next step. So be on the lookout for that. We got a lot of stuff coming out on Bucs Nation over the next few weeks. So be on the lookout.
Last but not least, you can find myself, Instagram, and Twitter at Rhettakus, RHETTAKUS. If you follow me, I will follow you back. We'll talk to you guys soon. Of course, with any updates on Buccaneer news, we will have everything you need to know. But hopefully we got some more content rolling out for you guys over the next few weeks. So stay tuned, and we appreciate you checking us out. I'm your host, Rhett Matthew, signing off for my co-host, Evan Wanish. We'll talk to you guys in the next one. Until then, and as always, go Bucs.